The last thing I'm going to talk about for about 30 seconds is a very, very, very quick history of who we are. We started in 2015 as Pioneer Valley for Bernie, and then decided to go on using Bernie's platform primarily as our platform initially. We're a multi-issue dues-paying membership organization. Our dues have remained $10 for the last 5 years, no inflation. So that's good. That's about the only thing probably. We have multiple task forces that work on education issues, Medicare for all, climate crisis, housing and peace. We've been pretty involved in electoral politics at the local level. We just recently got 3 people onto the school committee. We had a slate that we ran. Our focus this year is on the Fair Share Amendment. That's the millionaire's tax that will be on the ballot in November. We plan on doing some canvassing in Greenfield. If anybody wants to join us, let us know. You can get involved by writing to info@fccpr.us. And also, we are an affiliate of Our Revolution Massachusetts, ORMA, and also of Indivisible. And I think that is all I've got. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn this over to Anne, who will do the next part of this discussion. Anne?
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to do the slideshow.
If you want to go to the slideshow menu and...
There we go. Okay, so here we are. We've just had this Independence Day 2022. And in the wake of the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs to overturn Roe v. Wade, we're seeing a travesty for women, girls, and anyone with a uterus, as well as the men who value them, because of the denial of bodily autonomy to those who can become pregnant. So what does freedom mean in our country now? I mean, what does celebrating American independence and this Declaration of Independence, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness really mean when half the population aren't guaranteed the right to make reproductive decisions over their bodies, their futures, their families, their children's futures? So when the Supreme Court decision against Roe allows abortion bans that create forced births for women that are based on religious views that deny the First Amendment rights to religion, the document of separation of church and state, all these things that are supposed to be basic American values, they bring us back to the days of the theocracy. So I thought it would be good to sing a little song. I'm just going to sing the chorus and the first verse and the last chorus. So if you want to sing along with me, this is going back to the good old days. This is 1979 Kristen Lemb's called Days of the Theocracy. We're going back, back to the good old days when men were really men and women knew their place. Back, back a couple of centuries, and welcome back the days of the theocracy. First they fight abortion, birth control is next, then comes sex if you're not married, and finally out goes sex. Put the prayers back in the schools, install parochial aid, allow for corporal punishment, and then we got it made. But no going back, back to the bad old days when men were really masters and women were their slaves. Let's go ahead, ahead to future centuries and bring a world that's based on true democracy and bring a world that's based on true equality. Ah, people. Okay. So, I think we have to all think of ourselves as educators. This is a really crisis point in U.S. history, and we've got to take back the abortion debate. It's not, as they say, pro-choice versus pro-life, because we're pro-life. We're pro-freedom, reproductive justice. They are anti-abortion, capitalist, patriarchal, white supremacists. They are undermining life quality, creating a situation where women may have illegal abortions and actually die and therefore legally be murdered by their by the forces that have put those reactionaries in the Supreme Court and our deadlocked Congress. So we need to be reframing this debate We're about pro-freedom reproductive justice. And reproductive justice isn't just for women. It's for children. It's for the children of those women who are otherwise forced to birth children that will damage the lives of their other children. It's for trans and gender queer folks. It's for men in all families, whether poor or not, particularly those who value women as equal citizens. And reproductive justice includes other rights, not just abortion rights. It includes rights to contraception. I mean, bodily autonomy means you basically can control your reproduction through contraception, through sex education, so you know what's happening, through affordable abortion, not just legal abortion, but affordable abortion, and reproductive health care to carry to birth, healthy babies if they're wanted, and also for care afterwards. And so if you look at what the progressive bills that are now in the Massachusetts legislature, all of them involve a wider range of reproductive rights. We've already got the Roe Act in Massachusetts, which is a very progressive bill guaranteeing abortion, legal abortion up to, I think it's 26 weeks, and then afterwards with a physician. But these other bills would guarantee protection for abortion providers and clients from other states against legal action by red states for those who come to safe states, like say sanctuary states like Massachusetts for abortion. It would give or make available medication abortion, that is Plan C, the pill, full spectrum pregnancy care, and that just means also prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, basically doula work, full free menstrual products in schools and colleges. So there's a lot of bills that we could be supporting, that we should be supporting. So we have to be really understanding we are in a reproductive health care emergency. These bans, as I've mentioned, we should be thinking of them as violence against women and pregnant people. They are going to cause violence in all kinds of ways. I mean, basically, domestic violence by unfortunate men who don't want their partners to be pregnant, but then who are forced to have to deal with the consequences of unwanted pregnancies. Illegal abortions that basically kill women, which is violence of the state. These vigilante actions in some of these states, which allow concealed carry weapons and bounty hunting of abortion providers and criminalization of women, basically create a whole cultural violence that's going to harm women and their children. And so we know that the Dobbs decision has basically created the situation where all these trigger laws in 26, that's like half of the states in this country, are activated, and most of these bans don't allow abortion, even for rape or incest, only for the life of the mother. So we're going to have just a number of people, young people, whatever, who are having to deal with unwanted abortions. And in these states, Medicaid, the red states with these abortion bans, most of them lack Medicaid coverage for low-income women and children altogether, so no health care. So here you have a situation where you're going to bring another child into a situation where there's no basic health care. The Hyde Amendment from the 70s bans federal money for low-income abortions. So even when they're legal, if you can't afford them and they're in another state, it's going to be very hard to get them. We know that Black women are 4 times more likely to suffer maternal mortality than white women, and that is partly because of poverty, but it's and stress of institutional racism, and so you're condemning, minority women to by forced births more likely deaths from unwanted pregnancy. I just want to point out that this isn't totally new, this reproductive health care emergency. Roe was not wonderful. And what happened was in 1992, the Casey decision, trying to understand, how to deal with the question of whether abortion rights could continue past viability, modified Roe so that basically there are abortion bans of all sorts that now were in existence, even under Roe, that were disproportionately affecting poor women, rural women, and young women, like time limits, like judicial permission, like parental permission, like lack of abortion access, and so forth. So we already had a reproductive health care emergency for poor and working class and people of color. So now this is just making it 10 times worse. And I just want to mention one other thing: health emergencies because of gun violence and vigilante justice. I mean, people killed by angry white men are not able to reproduce, and it's not able to continue life. So that is a reproductive health care emergency in my book. So just to summarize, we need to give credit to the Black women, the 12 Black women who created the concept of reproductive justice. It was created in 1994 by Loretta Ross and others, basically opposing Bill Clinton, a Democratic president's welfare reform bill, which basically was going to make more punitive restrictions for poor women for welfare, would put time limits on welfare, would have work requirements, would basically restrict their ability to have healthy and non-poor children. And so they created this concept of and the Sister Song Collective, which is, a reproductive rights and reproductive justice group in Atlanta that Loretta Ross formed, defines reproductive justice as the human right to bodily autonomy. I'm just reading this off of their website. I have all these sites, by the way, if you want them. To have children, to not have children, to parent the children we have in a healthy, safe, and sustainable community. And if you look on the Movement for Black Lives website, they also argue that that Roe is going to bring disproportionate harm to Black people. I'm sorry, so the SCOTUS decision to overturn Roe will do that. And that this, is in the situation where the U.S. already should be trying to overcome its brutal history of reproductive control over particularly Black people from the legacy of slavery. And it's not just Black people. I mean, we have today in Huntsville, Alabama, just recently, in a detention center, ICE detention center, there were 60 cases of, women who were sterilized without their consent because of a doctor who didn't want immigrant women reproducing. So self-determination and reproductive freedom are essential for economic justice, for racial justice, and for reproductive justice in general. I just want to say a little bit before I stop about the roots of the Supreme Court crisis for progressive values and reproductive justice. We know that historically and structurally, the Supreme Court is an undemocratic institution. So really, we're going to have to need a long-term strategy to confront this aspect, this institution. So because the judges are never impartial. They're always appointed by a political president, from one of the parties or other. They're always appointed for life, so they can't be reined in by any democratic critique of them. We know that 60% of the people support abortion in the U.S., and yet we've got a six-person majority on the Supreme Court who are passing this abortion ban for undermining a democratic decision making. And we have the situation that since the 1970s, we have this reactionary alliance of white racists and the religious right, and they actually formed to challenge federal civil rights and abortion rights decisions of the Supreme Court that were trying to guarantee, like Brown versus Board of Education, to guarantee integrated public education, and Roe v. Wade in 1972. And so they wanted to promote states' rights. They were opposed to get the federal regulation of their Southern culture, which was racist and sexist. And so they started trying to, find a way to get their people on the Supreme Court and to influence Congress, to get evangelical and Catholics together and try to, bring this political force together. And they did in the 80s. They then picked up the neoliberal capitalists who were promoting they were not particularly religious, kind of like Trump, promoting economic freedom for owners, not workers, undermining social goods like welfare, undermining union rights. And the last thing, or the last two things I want to say is that the Federalist Society, which is this group that was formed of right-wing lawyers in the late 1970s, early 80s, has this concept that the U.S. Constitution needs to be read in the as an originalist reading, and then what that means is it can't be read so as to reflect the values of today. It's supposed to reflect the values of the slave-owning white men who wrote it, and so they want to say that it in this decision, the Dobbs decision, that they were going to deny any rights not explicitly mentioned by the founders, and of course they don't mention abortion rights, but they certainly don't mention women's rights to vote, because women couldn't have the right to vote then. They don't mention slaves' rights, because slaves didn't have the right to vote, or full citizen rights that the 13th, 14th, and 19th Amendment guarantee. So they're just contradictory. They just pick out what they want to promote out of the Constitution, out of the original values of the founders, and they ignore others that have been since amended that are in the Constitution, including the right to freedom of religion, which the First Amendment, should guarantee to women who feel their religion or lack of it allows them, the right to have an abortion. So, and then what's the scary thing is, of course, these 6 originalist Supreme Court judges could follow Clarence Thomas's suggestions. That he has explicitly said that, in the Dobbs decision, that we should be undoing legal precedent of the Supreme Court decisions that guaranteed reproductive rights to contraception. That's the Griswold case. Gay sex, that was the Lawrence case. Gay marriage, that was the Obergefell case. And we're going to have other ones that are going to be coming up from probably Texas and Florida that want to deny trans rights to gender affirming medical treatment. So we've got, we really have to figure out a solution to rein in the Supreme Court, or we're going to have reproductive rights and justice even further eroded. So I'm just going to quickly list these action steps that the coordinating committee and some of us came up with to be discussed, and then we'll go from there on the discussion. We thought of lobbying Massachusetts representatives to sign on to our Senator Markey has a Judiciary Action Bill of 2021, which would expand the U.S. Supreme Court, adding 4 more seats. That would hopefully give Democratic president a right to nominate and try to get in 4 more judges that might, even though it doesn't eliminate the undemocratic nature of the Supreme Court, at least allows for more, possibly more liberals. And secondly, to try to think of abortion organizations and abortion funds to whom we can send donations, realizing that we're going to be a sanctuary state, Massachusetts, and the abortion funds in various states are going to really need to be ramped up to help people who are basically escaping from forced births in other states. We can do electoral politics in various ways, organizing postcard campaigns to try to promote electing progressive Democrats in battleground states. Direct action and demonstrations. We can send our statement after we discuss it and edit it to the Recorder and the Gazette as op-eds. We can contribute to progressive electoral work in New Hampshire, which would really, hopefully, where we can hopefully get our Democratic incumbents reelected. And we can participate more in statewide progressive organizations like Our Revolution and Indivisible Massachusetts, which David already mentioned, and we're really other ideas as well. So that's my overview.
Well done.
So it's quite a whirlwind that we're dealing with. So we're gonna take the rest of our time together to think together about how we might act individually, in small groups, and as the whole CPR community. The first thing we'd like to do is take a look at together the statement that the coordinating committee put together in response to abortion rights. And I think we sent it out to all of you, but maybe we could also put it up if that's possible.
Yes, we can do that.
And the intention here is not to fix the grammar. right? But to really think about, what does the statement have in it? What does it need to make it stronger? So we don't want to micro analyze it, but more think about it, what it needs, so that it's the strongest statement we can make, and then think about how we might want to use it. So the first suggestion is, can we make it bigger so people can read it? And again, it might be that some of you have it on your computers or where you can see it, if that's
I can
easier.
also put the link to it in the chat so people can go load it themselves if they like.
And we're going to, as David mentioned earlier, ask people to raise their hands. And there are enough of us here that we can't see everybody on the screen. But if you raise your hand, we will know that you want to speak and the order you've raised your hand in. And what we'd like to encourage you to do is to share your thoughts about what's in here.
I
So
just want to mention that raise your hand under reactions rather than on the screen, because we may not see your hand there.
Right. So
Yeah,
if
thank
you
you.
press the reactions at the bottom of and you have the raise hand thing, and it goes up in the corner of your picture.
Yes. And your picture rises to the top, and it also shows up in the participants window.
So
Jane
not
raised her hand.
Who did? Oh, Jane.
Me.
Thank you,
Me.
Jane. Get us started.
I just, you had a list of things and you said other suggestions. And I think we need, if you think of yourselves as educators, I think we need teach-ins for younger people who weren't there 50 years ago and didn't know what it meant to our lives, you know?
Mhm.
And all the restrictions that were, and all the places that women were in, and all the things we couldn't do, and the help wanted male and female, all that stuff. I've talked to women at the VA who think this is just about abortion, you know, and abortion is like, I think it's like the tip of the iceberg, where it's this little thing to draw people in and saying, well, those poor little babies, we can all agree on that. Poor little babies shouldn't die. And that's just to draw people in. And then there's all these other things that they really want to get to. But I just think that this woman at the VA, she didn't know that contraception was outlawed way back when, you know, that it was illegal, and that we're going to go there if you want to go there again. So I just think young people need teach-ins. You know, I'm just thinking of teach-ins during the Vietnam War, how little we knew about Vietnam to begin with, and all we had to learn, and that there were teachings at college and everything. So that's just that's my idea. Okay.
Thank you. And two things. One is, after you've spoken, if you would take your hand down, there's also in that same reactions, you can lower hand, so we know that you're not. And we're going to take as many suggestions as we can get and think together about how to act. So if folks have things to say about the draft, that's fine. If you want to talk about any of the suggestions that the coordinating committee came up with to get us started, and or suggestions you'd like to add, as Jane just did, that's great. Kelly from Texas.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kelly, and I joined FCCPR a couple of months ago because I found y'all on the web, and there's nothing like this down in Texas, and I hope to escape this place soon. So my thoughts are, I loved Anne's wording in her statement, if like the way she reframed this whole discussion. Perhaps you can sort of incorporate her statements into this draft, you know, or her phrasing, her reframing statements into this draft, because I really like the way she turns it around, and by reframing it, that really makes it clearer, I think. And then my other suggestion would be, like, I like all your ideas. I think they're excellent. As far as what you can work on, what we can all work on there. I want to work remotely and get to know a little bit about Franklin County and the area. And my only thought is that missing from all of this, and I see this in other discussions elsewhere, is the idea that we have to vote these people out in November. Like in November, we have to recreate 1932's election when the Democrats just swamped the Republicans and threw them out after years of their rule, and because they had so wrecked the country with the Depression. And I think we need that kind of similar reaction. It has to be that kind of enabling moment where people go to the polls, and people down in Texas tell me all the time, well, we can't, we've been gerrymandered. And yeah, every place that's a red state has been hopelessly gerrymandered. But red states don't yet have electoral colleges. So in Texas, when our governor is up for election this year, we can vote him out and get a Democrat, Beto O'Rourke, in there. So I'm sure there are other things in like in New Hampshire, you want to do work, you know, that may be applicable there, where there are Senate or statewide seats that can be gotten and be turned to Democratic if they're not already. So those are my two suggestions. All of this fails if nobody votes in November. We absolutely have to have massive people come out and vote. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Other thoughts, either about the document or about actions? Mike and Penny. Mike and or Penny. You're muted.
We do that because we don't know who's going to be on which machine.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the pressure points. We probably don't want to do things that are likely to make things or liable to make things worse. So I see there the idea about democracy. Well, you know, the reason we have a constitution is to be a limit on democracy. I think that's a good idea. And I see this here about making certain things that make laws and policies not subject to judicial review. Then what is going to determine whether they're constitutional or not? I mean, bad as the decisions of the Supreme Court are, we'd have much worse when, you know, if the legislature just can rule and whatever it says is automatically constitutional. We had times in our not very distant past where we had things done that even the court was scared to rule against, if you will, against the rest of the government on. You know, we interned our own citizens during World War II. You know, so that was the will of the majority. You know, the will of the majority is not necessarily okay. So I think we have to be careful about making things worse than they are now.
And I appreciate your pointing out that things are complicated enough that there are a lot of ramifications that we have to think through. So keeping that in mind. Jennifer, I think you're next.
Hi. So I agree that the draft statement is very well worded and pretty comprehensive. My thought about it is that there might be more emphasis put on the toll of women's mental and physical health through this abortion ban, because, you know, women who are forced to give birth to their either incestuously conceived children or their rapist's child, I mean, that takes a tremendous traumatic toll on a person. And you know, there are a lot of states that are also considering banning abortion, even in the case when a woman's life is at risk in giving birth. And to me, that just seems really worth highlighting because the cruelty of that is just unbelievable. And then, so that's my suggestion for the statement. And then I had a thought too about direct action, another way that direct action could be initiated, which would be, you know, maybe for local people to sponsor people in red states, maybe particularly vulnerable people in red states, either economically, racially, or, you know, a particularly unfair case, to come to Massachusetts and, you know, and to have an abortion here. And we could put people up and kind of help to to make that possible for people for whom it seems impossible.
And I think there are already networks forming around the country and perhaps in Massachusetts to help facilitate that. So definitely we can explore that some more. Thank you. Sarah, you're next.
Thank you. But I have a couple things. One is that there's also this collateral damage with this immediately, where, like, for instance, people who have a lupus diagnosis and are taking methotrexate. Methotrexate is it's like a chemo drug, and it also helps with lupus, and it does have the property of the possibility of ending a pregnancy. And so women in red states where these trigger laws happened started immediately being denied their lupus medicine, because whether or not they were pregnant, it had nothing to do with it. But so there are these pharmaceutical problems that are happening as well. And then in terms of pressure points or plans, one of the things I'm thinking about for Massachusetts is to get together with some of our legislators and form a bill that creates an abortion care corps. So you have people all over the state that go to these certificate programs and can do things like be phlebotomists or do limited medical care. And I think we could fund training hundreds of abortion providers in a certificate program, because people are going to be coming to the state and we're going to need extra facilities just for this care and extra providers just for this care. So seeing if we can work with legislators to create and fund an abortion care corps.
Thank you. Penny, you're next. And you're muted.
Fair. Okay. I assume that these, the section of the printout that I have here, pressure points for discussion, will not be discussed right now.
Well, if you have something to say about them, you're certainly free to do it. We're not going to go into hyper detail, but if you have a comment about them.
Okay. I do want to say that we have to be really careful. Because as has been discovered in the past, when people didn't think carefully through how bills were worded, changes. What might seem like an obvious thing to us because we see it being used in favor of the things we value, can just as well be used by the Trumpers and really crush anything we might want to do. You always have to think in the future, not just right now, but further on down. I like what Sarah said, because I am online. I am pointing out to people on news sites and things of that sort, the reality of what abortion is. All medical or spontaneous terminations of pregnancy are abortion, and in anti-abortion states, doctors who help save a woman's life because she has an ectopic pregnancy are, by the laws of the state, guilty of murder and can be tried for murder. So it's good to educate when we can. But yes, this is actually obviously an attempt to make even more pressure on people of low income and minorities, and to abuse women's and cause death to women. It's flat out, it's a war on women.
Thank you. Well said. Ann Ferguson's next, then Dave Cohen.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to some of the things that were said. I think Sarah's idea, basically, of the abortion care court is really important. I mean, there is the Janes. There's 2 movies, the actual documentary of the Janes from the 1970s and a fictionalized version that people can look at. But I also know about Argentina, where basically women organized to support other women who are going through illegal abortions, and kind of as abortion doulas to help them with pills or whatever they needed. And of course, the Janes were just trained themselves, or were trained by someone who wasn't even a doctor, but who knew the procedure to give abortions. And so the idea of having a law that would pass the Massachusetts legislature that would create an abortion care court, I think is really important. And it does connect to, for example, Maryland just recently passed a law creating expanding the number of people who can be abortion providers, which would include physicians, assistants, but also medical assistant, those who aren't full doctors. And, so that that could happen in Massachusetts too. I also agree, though, that with Penny, that it is a war on women and those, with uteruses. Let's not forget that there are people who can become pregnant who are not defining themselves as women. Who are, yes. So we need to include them too. And we need to be careful, as Penny pointed out, to think what Trumpers can do with badly crafted laws and policies. It's complicated, but we really have to start doing this work as educators, progressive feminist educators.
Thank you. Dave Cohen?
Hi, just real quickly to say, we got a good email from Natalie Blay, our state rep, who outlined the bill that the House of Representatives in Massachusetts passed, and we'll send that out to everyone. But it was fairly comprehensive. On the statement, I think
Dave, what is that bill?
I'm looking for the name of it right now.
The 4930?
Yes.
It's an act expanding protections for reproductive rights.
Right. I think that on the document, I think the section where we talk about the other things that the Supreme Court has done, I think we need to strengthen that section a little bit. And especially, I think, looking at what the Supreme Court has done to voting rights, because so much of their theory is based on going back to states' rights, and that's really where they're heading. And by eliminating the Voting Rights Act and weakening the voting rights laws, allows them to do the gerrymandering in the red states. So I think maybe we could beef that up a little bit. And the other thing, on Markey's bill to add 4 more justices to the Supreme Court, I tend to think that's something that we should really work on. Right now, when I looked, there was only one of our Congress people, Anaya Presley, who has co-sponsored that legislation. And the rest of the Massachusetts congressional delegation hasn't signed on to it yet. So I think maybe we could start by sending them all letters and then think about putting pressure on them, because that's going to be the most direct way to overturn the Supreme Court. It's not going to happen overnight, and voting in November will be key to that. But I think we need to build support for the conception of adding more Supreme Court justices.
Thanks, Dave. David Greenberg, can we put on the screen the coordinating committee list of suggested actions, just so we can think about what our little group of coordinating committee folks came up with as a starting point to the conversation. Others have already added potential actions. One of the things we are most concerned about leaving this meeting with is having it not just be another Ain't It Awful Zoom meeting, but actually coming away with some plans to get in motion or to join actions that are already in motion. Because as we've all said, it's time to act. So taking a look at what's here and what has been suggested, what else might we think about doing? Dave, is your hand still up or did you not lower it? Dave Cohen.
I did not lower it, sorry.
Okay, so Mike, I guess you're up. And you're muted.
Penny and I have already begun working on number 2. It's not as easy as it seems because a lot of the organizations are right now in a kind of freeze status. They don't know what they're going to do because of the regulations. We only have found so far 2 that are pledged to be ongoing. One of them is the Buckle Bunnies Fund in Texas. They're extremely young, however, and as a result, it's very hard to donate to them if you don't have these cell phone apps, smartphone apps that do some of these money transfer things. And the other one is a pretty strictly pill provider that is going to be operating in legal states, but they're going to be they're planning to put mobile vans at the state borders adjacent, so that people from the state that are banned won't have to travel as far, because out they're in the Midwest, and distances are pretty large. Yeah, just crossing a state line doesn't necessarily put you near a city where there's going to be facilities. The other thing I want to say is there is a connection with federal laws. I don't know if you go back to when the Supreme Court rules something, there's also a question about how it gets enforced by states. If you go back to the time we ended up with a civil war over this, it wasn't so much the Dred Scott decision as what that meant for the Fugitive Slave Act, and that states were forced to cooperate with the returning of slaves. So we have in the past had situations where federal laws do get involved in these states' rights things. It may again be involved in it. We want to see how far some of these states will have to wait to see how far some of them are going to go if they're going to try to forbid people from traveling.
Right. Okay, thank you, Mike. Christine, you're next.
Hi, so I was wondering about checking in with the different clinics and seeing if they need more people to help protect those going in and out of the clinic.
Are you talking about clinics in Massachusetts or clinics beyond Massachusetts?
Well, I think Massachusetts, but now that you mention it, I think that would be great to look into for across the country.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions I have that's maybe easier this is pretty overwhelming to think about and pretty heavy to think about, of course, all of it. The statement that we have up, we've talked about sending it to the Recorder and the Gazette, perhaps with some additions or changes that people have suggested. Are there other places we might send the statement once it's fine-tuned? Should we send it to our legislators? Should we send it to, well, where might it go as an action we can take? So that's one thing to think about. Yeah, Sharon.
Yes, legislators. I think the statement should be sent to, our federal legislators as well as our state legislators. And, maybe beyond just the people who represent us in Franklin County as well. I think we need to figure that out. But I think it would be good that all the people that are elected to represent us in the state need to know what we think. The other place it might be helpful to send it to is progressive organizations. I know that Orma is here at the meeting, thank you. But other progressive organizations that might want to pick up, especially, I think we need to refine the pressure points piece, and that needs to be a part of whatever we send out. There's been great suggestions that came up here. And I was going to ask Mike or Penny if you could put into the chat those two places you were talking about that you researched that you've been giving funding to. That would be great. But so legislators and progressive organizations who might want to, you know, spread the word.
Great, thanks, Sharon. Susan.
I just wanted to add the notion of newsletters that might be at the Western Mass Abortion Rights Fund or Planned Parenthood of Massachusetts might be a place where we could send our statements as well.
Great. I'm wondering, and Henry, you don't have to be I'm putting you on the spot, but you don't have to take it on. But since you are here from Orma, perhaps you can sort of check in a little bit, let people know what Orma is doing or how we might think about expanding what we're doing to align with you. And if you'd rather not at this point, if you just want to be a quiet part of the conversation, that's fine. But
I'm mainly here to listen, Doug and everyone. Happy to be a guest. The idea was to try and get an idea of what is going on around the state. I don't know if this is the right moment, but what I can say is not on behalf of Orma. The Representative Council hasn't weighed in with a collective assessment of where we are. I can tell you what's on my mind personally, but that's all it is. It's a personal statement. And it comes from a belief that democracy, such as it is at risk these days. If we didn't know it, the Supreme Court underlined that it's willing to push back everywhere. Religion in government, dismantling all regulatory agencies, bringing us back to the, as the song said, the theocracy of the early 20th century. That is really what we're facing. My feeling is that there's nothing that anyone has suggested that seems to me on this Zoom a bad idea. What I'm most concerned about is power and how little power the left has, and that within the Democratic Party, which is the biggest organization standing up to Trump, as feeble as that seems today, but that's the problem. The leadership of the party doesn't recognize that in practice, the party is a coalition, and they're not recognizing that. So around the country, there's the likelihood that young people and people of color and working class people will stay home because they're not inspired by the actions of Biden and the Democratic leadership. And that leadership is actively stifling anyone to the left of Biden. And they're not standing up to Manchin and Samina. So I think in that context, we need to push for a united front within the party to say that there will be districts that will be really progressive, other districts that will be moderate, but we have to find a formula that both the left and the right within the party agree to, so we don't have this warfare that led to Pelosi campaigning for Henry Sola in Texas and making me say, why bother? But we need that united front. That's how in Massachusetts we can work to bring that about. That's an interesting and challenging question. But sorry to have gone on, but that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry, and sorry to put you on the spot. Kelly.
I just want to briefly add that again, this reinforces the importance of voting. And I agree, I'm completely uninspired by Biden, and everybody I know down here in Texas is completely uninspired by Biden, but he's our only choice. So I like your idea, Henry, of sort of a united front, but it's sort of like, hey, everybody, this is a total effing emergency of the sort we haven't seen in 90 years. We haven't seen this since FDR came up against Hoover, and we had a chance to throw the Republicans out then, and we did. You know, FDR carried the country 57 to 37, 18 percentage point difference. We need to recreate that this November. Every state we possibly can. That just has to be emphasized. Otherwise, all these other things that everybody wants to do are impossible. If we don't all join together, and, you know, like I was really thinking about this, we could sweetly, in a nice way, acknowledge Biden is, you know, an old man. But hey, old men have friends and old men need help. So let's all help each other, and let's all vote Democratic this fall, and let's throw the bums out. You know, I mean, just that has to be emphasized. We are all in this together. I don't care if you're the super lefty progressive, or, you know, cinema and mansion. We are all in this together. We are all going to suffer if we don't vote them out in November, and we accept this status quo that keeps being repeated on NPR and other places that, oh, the Republicans are reset to take the House of Representatives, and, well, they might have trouble with the Senate, or whatever nonsense that is. We have to reject that completely. Anyway, thank you.
Got it. Thanks. So I have a little process question for us. We've had a lot of ideas come in, and the question is, how do we take what was, you know, what we came up with before our meeting, plus the suggestions, the powerful suggestions that have come in, and think about, so what do we do? How should we go about organizing ourselves based on this?
Doug,
Dave, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I am, because as the host, I don't have a hand to raise. Sorry. They assume the host can just talk whenever they want, but that's really not how we want to do this. But I do have an idea about that. Good. People have started to write in the chat the stuff that they like. If people do that more, we will save this chat. The whole thing is being recorded. I also want to let people know how you can save the chat. If you go to the right-hand lower corner of the chat window, you see 3 little dots. If you click on that, there's a save option. So I'll give some people, before we end the meeting, I'll give people a minute or two to save the chat themselves if they'd like to. And then if people put the stuff they like, that they've heard about, into the chat, we'll be able to go through that and maybe come up with the most popular ideas. For example, I think trying to do some legislation either with Natalie, who already has something, or with Lindsay, who is really good, or Joe Comerford, that's something people seem to be excited about. I think we can move on that.
And I saw a couple of people responding to the idea of boycotts, boycotting corporations that are, because money talks. We know that. Susan T. You're muted, Susan.
I know how to copy the chat, but I never know where to find it. Where is it once you copy it?
Yeah, it's gonna be in your documents folder, in a Zoom folder, I think.
Or in the Finder?
No, I think it's gonna go into your documents. There's gonna be a folder called Zoom in there, and I think it'll be in there.
Okay.
David, is it technically possible to have you, who actually maybe know how to do this, copy the chat and send it to us as an email? So
yeah, that's doable.
Because I picture Susan at 3 o'clock in the morning still looking for it.
Oh, not a chance. I give up after about 5 minutes.
There you go. But we want you to have the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, I can send the chat to everybody who registered for the webinar.
That'd be
I
great.
do think that bill 4930, House Bill 4930, and Act expanding protections for reproductive rights. I think Susanna Whips was the person who put that bill forward. Just
Great.
FYI.
Good
And I
take, got an
think-
email from Natalie.
And doesn't that bill also protect physicians who are working with people from out of state?
The few things I wrote down were shields providers and patients
Right.
from out-of-state legal action, declares reproductive health care and gender affirming care to be a right under Massachusetts law, and provides broad liability protections for providers and related care for patients.
Yeah,
Right.
it's similar to a Senate Amendment 388 provider protection bill, but it's the House.
Great. Eileen, you're next.
Hi. My whole thought is I've been trying to educate people on my own, and a lot of people don't seem to be looking forward, like they'll focus on the abortion issue. But then when you say to them, when that right is taken away, this is where it's going. And I try to explain to them how, like when they just tried to do regulatory agencies like the EPA, I said, that's going to be like set a precedent that these things are just going to go down the line. And people either don't even realize that these things have happened, like the EPA being deregulated. People seem like they're overwhelmed. If you talk to them about like the Constitution, people don't seem to be getting it. So what I was thinking is, remember in 2016, after the election, when Trump got elected, we had that forum where we had people come to the Grange. We put an ad in the recorder, and then people came to the Grange. We got a lot of people, and people actually really needed a place to vent. So I was thinking if in the fall we could do something along those lines, but put an ad in the recorder that says, come to the Grange. Our group is having this meeting, and say something to the effect, what do all these changes mean to you? Where is this going? I mean, something along those lines, sort of like do a forum, but kind of sort of educate people.
Mm-hmm.
This is like Jane Alicia's teaching idea, but and face to face to deal with this sort of burnout and people's sense of it's hopeless. Where do we go from here?
Exactly. And I think knowledge is power. And if we could get somebody there that could break the Constitution down or give out a handout that kind of broke it down so it would make it easier for people to understand. Because a lot of people just get too overwhelmed at the end of the day.
Right.
Right. So I didn't know if we wanted to sponsor something like that. I'm just floating the idea like in the fall.
Well, that's what we're doing, is pulling together as many ideas as we can.
Okay.
So thank you for that. Sharon, you're next, and then Dave Cohen.
So I don't know, maybe, oops. Oh, I'm not muted. Huh. I don't know, it might just be my bias, but it seems like this concept of the abortion care corps might be something that could gain some traction. And I would like to propose, pulling together a meeting of those of us who are interested in moving forward with that, and that we would then convene a meeting, probably by Zoom, with some key legislators. And I'm thinking, Susanna Whips and Natalie Blay and Lindsay and Joe Comerford, Paul Mark come to my mind instantly, because they would probably, be helpful in crafting something. So that's sort of an interest I have in something to move forward on. And I don't know if there's people here who want to convene a meeting to talk about that further, or how should we go from here, Doug?
Well, it sounds like you've just called for a meeting. So if you would put your contact info in the chat, people can contact you and you can decide how to move forward.
Yeah, Penny suggested a new task force, FCCPR.
Oh, a new task force.
And I just wanted to mention, there's also the mutual aid idea of actually learning, how to do abortions or to support medical abortion, care people who are taking Plan C or taking the pills, which is medication abortions.
Mhm.
And some of us could learn how to do that. That's not, I think, rocket science. And think about ourselves as a mutual aid corps, not just a paid corps or medical professionals. But that's within our, anyway, that's something we could talk about.
Mhm. Dave Cohen, you're next. And you're
Oh.
muted. There you go.
I was just going to add, and we'll send out a copy of the Massachusetts legislation. But I thought one important part of it was that it forbids police from cooperating with police from other states, especially if police from other states are trying to track down people who have come to Massachusetts for abortions. And it forbids police from doing that and judges from issuing any subpoenas.
Thank you. I want to note that there are a number of people on the call who have not said anything tonight, and I want to invite you, if you have thoughts or ideas, either to add suggestions or to respond to what other people have suggested. I hope you'll do that. We are, again, we're smarter together, as the cliche goes, and so your thoughts will help us to think more usefully about things. So if you haven't said anything, please feel invited to join that conversation, and we'll keep going. Cheryl, there you are with your hand up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You embarrassed me into having to say something.
Oh, good. That's my job.
I don't know, maybe it's because it's what I do best, but I think showing up on the street is something we should be doing every week. And we already have this opportunity on the Greenfield Common between 10 and 12 every Saturday. So, more people, we don't have enough. We don't have nearly enough, but I just think that's another way of showing everybody that we're not going to take this. This is something that was just unimaginable, and we're not going to go along with it. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have, certainly FCCPR has tabled down on Saturday mornings. It might be something that we can sort of combine tabling with standing out with signs and such. Having both the statement, the statement that we've written and other information as part of our education campaign, have it available to distribute down at the market. Sarah Steinberg, and then Mike.
I guess one of the things I think about in terms of getting out on the street is I feel like we turned people out in enormous numbers in the wake of the George Floyd murder, and to get Donald Trump out of office, and still, like, this is where we are. And I feel like, to me, what that says is, okay, well, that didn't work. We did it really well and it didn't work. And so for me, I feel like, and this might go against the unifying of the Democrats idea. This might be a little off kilter, but I just think that the machine has to just get stopped. So if we are going to hit the streets, how do we block commerce? How do we do something that isn't just, hey, we're mad? Like, that doesn't matter that we're mad, and it hasn't mattered for years now. So I think for me, when people put that kind of effort forward in a capitalist moment that's crushing so many people, if we're going to ask people for their time to do something, I feel like I want it to work. And I don't know what that means, but I just feel like all the things that are being suggested, we can't vote any harder than we voted. We can't hit the streets any hard. Like all of that stuff was done. Like what's next is the question that I'm struggling with. And I wonder if other people feel the same way. I'm not sure.
Well, people can certainly respond to that. And I mean, my response is, I think it's all of the above. So I think there's value in standing out and there's value in doing other things too. And we need to do everything we can. And folks can join in whatever ways they feel best fits what they can do. But it's clear that we need to do more than we've done, for sure. Mike, you are next, and then Eileen again.
I think that the kind of demonstrations that were just described are going to be effective or usable, whether they're effective or not, in the places where the pressures we put. I mean, I don't think it's going to do us any good up here right now, stopping the traffic, because Massachusetts right now is not part of the problem. We are going to, I think, want to discover which of the entities, I'm going to call them entities rather than organizations, because I don't know how organized some of them are, that are going to be carrying on in these states where abortion is now illegal. There are a couple that make it very clear that they plan to carry on. The two that I've found, Buckle Bunnies and Sisters, are part of the radical community to begin with. Okay. Buckle Bunnies is out of the gay trans sex worker community, and Sis is out of the radical Black community, also heavily involved in the gay community. And so they're sort of used to working underground. Okay. They probably are going to get involved in pill smuggling. So it's a matter of funding some groups like that. They're funding, one of the problems right now, and I've been going down a list of all these abortion funding groups, is most of them were directly tied to a particular clinic, which has had to close. So right now they are essentially frozen. We're going to have to see what they're going to do. Others like Yellowhammer Fund, which is Alabama, have basically said they're going to obey the law. They've stopped operations. We're going to have to find out what these various entities are planning to do. They're the ones on ground zero.
Right. Okay. Eileen, and then Susan, and then Penny.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody else went down to see the town hall meeting a few weeks ago with Jamie Raskin and Jim McGovern. It did not leave us hopeful, and there was like standing room only in there. They basically came out and said our democracy is hanging by a thread. Okay, so that, and they didn't sugarcoat it at all. That was the first thing. And the other thing I keep on going back to is that journalist that went into Germany after World War II, Milton Mayer, and he asked people from all walks of life, how did this happen? And every one of them said, it happened so slowly and so incrementally, you didn't realize it was happening until you woke up one day and you realized, oh my gosh, I'm living in a fascist society and I don't know who I can trust anymore. And I think, I don't care what anybody else says, I think we're in that moment. I think our rights are being taken away, and I think it's going to be happening very gradually, whereas most people don't even realize it's happening because they're trying to survive. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Susan?
Can I tell about an event that's happening Saturday around this issue?
Please.
Okay, I got this from Indivisible Northampton. There have been 2 events this week. One was Tuesday, and the second one is on Saturday from 2 to 4 at Pulaski Park in Northampton. It's being put on by a youth-led group that is youth-led feminist movement to ratify the ERA amendment and advance gender equality. And the group is called Generation Ratify. And the word generation has ERA right in the middle of it, which they include in as part of their logo. And this thing on Saturday, Pulaski Park, 2 to 4, there's going to be word art to piece together emotions swirling around this, and then open mic for performers, etc. And they'll have an action pack of what to do in Massachusetts. I happened to go to the Tuesday thing, and it's really a bunch of young teenage, mostly girls, that are very enthusiastic about this work, and are very interesting. So I just want to suggest supporting the youth.
Thank you. Clearly.
Yeah, they were great. They were really great.
And, thinking back to, somebody mentioned the organizing about after George Floyd, some of us gray hairs had the rally on the Common, and we had 40 or 50 people, and the young folks had 2,000 that they organized in the march that went to the police station. So thinking about how we can all be, as many people have said on this call, we have to be together on this. I mean, what it takes is our numbers, which means it's got to be all of us. So figuring out how we can best connect.
And Doug, I'm sorry, I meant to say one other thing on the action steps that you have on the statement, which is about postcarding and phone calling. I don't know if that, I guess you're thinking of specifically gearing it toward reproductive rights, but Indivisible Northampton and several other groups locally are doing massive phone calling all the time now on getting people out to register and to vote.
Yeah, and clearly that's important too. Thank you.
So is this about strictly organizing that around reproductive rights? Was that what that was about?
I don't think so. I think it was recognizing all of the issues that are going on and thinking about how we address whatever it all needs addressing, so we can put our energies in whatever direction we want to do that.
Indivisible Northampton is doing a lot, and Indivisible National is also doing a lot.
Good. Thank you. Penny, I just want to say we've got about 12, 13 minutes. So, so we'll keep going. Yeah, Penny?
I believe that we should do everything across the board that we have access to. Not everybody has access or physical or whatever ability to do every single thing, but what we can do, I think we should do, even if it's old stuff. One of the things that somebody said, and I think it's really true, and if there is some way that we as individuals or a group can advocate to people in other states, that people who are activists going out should have a table at which they have registration to vote forms. Because we did that one year when we were backing a candidate. We went and got registration to vote. We had a table. We didn't tell them what to sign up for. We said, here they are, please register to vote. This is a democracy. In order to keep it, we have to vote. So that's my suggestion.
Thank you. Cheryl.
Yeah. Hi. I'm responding to Sarah. I don't know if you remember me, Sarah, but I met you up in Leiden a couple months ago. But I'm responding to that idea of doing what works and being kind of discouraged by most of what we do. I totally get discouraged myself, but the thing is, what has worked? I mean, has voting really worked? Has civil disobedience worked? Has standing on street corners worked? In a way, you could say nothing's worked, because look where we are. But it all matters. I think it all matters. Even if we don't end up winning, it matters. And so we do, I think, just doing anything that you feel called to do. And I certainly can see that there'll be times when we will have to be in the streets disrupting whatever is going on. Thanks.
Thank you, Cheryl. I want to call on Penelope and then Karen because they've not said anything tonight. I want to make sure they have a chance to add their voice to the conversation.
Karen, you're first.
Oh, okay. I thought we were going in the reverse, but I'm happy to go quickly. Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself quickly to everyone, and then I also have a comment kind of piggybacking off what Sarah said. I'm Karen Noti Valley. I'm the newly elected Indivisible Mass Coalition coordinating board rep for CD1. So I saw this event and I wanted to drop in and introduce myself to all of you and just hear what you guys are working on, which is awesome amounts of action. So thank you for that. Sarah, I feel your pain. I do. I've had the same reaction. I'm also the chair for the Munson Democratic Town Committee. So, I mean, I organized standouts against the Trump train. You know, we went there and directly opposed them, you know, and got spat at and like all kinds of crazy things. And we all work tirelessly, and it does, you know, feel like we're losing a lot of times. And I would like to see a win also, of course, and to keep my folks energized. But we have to remember that, you know, we did win. We made sure Trump was a one-term president, and it, you know, it took all of these actions, all the postcards, all the phone calls, all the standouts, everything. To me, like football, it's a game of inches, and we just have to keep, you know, doing what everybody can do. And I know we're all activists. We all get, you know, try to guard against the burnout. Don't do what you can't do. You know, take a rest, take a break. But, you know, Ezra, who just from Indivisible National, you know, he has expressed that MAGA extremism is the #1 biggest issue and threat to democracy. So again, I feel like we're in kind of like we were when you know, there was no other option but to elect Biden. I think we're in that space again, where there's really no other option but to try to win these midterm elections. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Karen. Penelope?
And I'm the third penny in the room, so thank you. My motto has always been think globally and act locally. And while I agree totally that all of the things we've talked about are important to keep on doing, but I'd like to suggest just for us as a local group, the FCCPR, we focus on 2 or 3 direct actions at this moment in time, because if we want to recruit others, we have to give them something very specific where there is a noted outcome. And we've talked about a couple of those things already. And one is the statement. That's easy to do. And the circulation of the statement can be very effective. The other is to work on the legislation and to introduce a new piece to the legislation that's before us. I think there were 1 or 2 other things that we could consider as very immediate direct action, so that someone says, what can I do tomorrow? You've got, you know, these things that this group is working on and can attract other people too. The rest of it goes on in the background in the broader sense of how we get out the vote and keep on doing that. But I would like to encourage us to have an action agenda right now that we can all put into effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Penelope. Anne and then Sarah.
Okay, 2 things. One, if you want more background in your role as educators about abortion rights and reproductive justice, I have Dave is going to put some links in the chat that are to several articles on the Supreme Court as a kind of background of how it's become radically right and its history. And then I also have a bunch of other things. I've been doing research on reproductive rights that have been recent in the 2022, 2021 links to various important articles, both about activism and about structural inequalities for reproductive rights. So just get in touch with me, and I'll be glad to give you those links. Then also, I agree with Penelope. I think we should be working on the statement and a few direct, immediate actions that people can join on with. And I'm asking people who want to edit and use some of these ideas that we've gotten to try to improve the statement. You can get in touch with me. I'm glad to work on that. And I also like the idea of an abortion care task force for FCCPR that people can be directed to.
And Anne, would you put your contact info in the chat if you haven't already? So folks who want
I have several times, but I'll do it again.
Okay. Okay. If it's there, that's great. I'm not looking. Sarah, and then Jennifer, I think you had your hand up and it's down again. So I'm not sure if you still want to talk, but after Sarah, you would be next.
Yeah, maybe I gave people the impression that I feel depressed or defeated or something. That's not the case. I just, I live in this little town. There was this racist police chief in our town. We got him, actually the whole police force is gone now. The whole police force is gone. There's a whole new select board. We drafted new candidates. I just spent the past year really thinking locally, acting locally, working with an incredible group of disparate voices to make a massive amount of change in a small town. And it really matters. And I see that. And part of the reason why I thought about the idea for the abortion care corps is that I have spent my whole life marching with a bunch of angry dykes. I have spent my whole life doing very I want outcomes, right? And so part of the abortion care corps is to take a finite amount of energy. I feel like we undervalue our energy with each other, and I want there to be outcomes. I want there to be systemic institutional outcomes that we can get done that are just so valuable to each other, to build something that you can turn your head and look at and be like, we made that. And not just look at a picture and be like, we were there. But we made that. We made that for young people. We made that for people that we've never met. We made this for strangers who deserve it. So I didn't mean to give the idea that I was frustrated and depressed, which I am, definitely. But that's not all I am. And I'm happy to be here with all of you. And this brainstorm is really inspiring. And thank you for inviting me. I haven't been back to FCCPR in a while, and it's good to be back. So thank you, everyone.
Nice to have you back. And part of what we have to do, because it's clearly an uphill and we're pushing, seems like all we're doing is pushing boulders uphill. And part of what keeps us going is each other. And it's harder to do it on Zoom. I mean, it's definitely better to be in the room with each other, but making connections and keeping connections. And so knowing we're not alone and working at it. And if you weren't at least a little frustrated and tired, I think you wouldn't be paying attention, given what's going on. Sharon, I think you may have the next to last word.
Well, I just wanted to tell people that I figured out how to copy the chat and know where it is, which is I go to the very bottom of it. I click, when I'm working in Word, you click, right click, and then you scroll up and you scroll up and you highlight the whole thing. And then you open a Word document and paste it. And I have saved the chat in a Word document, just like you would if you're working in Word. Just wanted to mention it because the three little dots, I never know where the chat goes. But I know where this chat is because it's in my Word document. And Sarah, I really have to say, I appreciate, I sort of feel like you were saying what Penny Kim was saying, the need for outcomes, something solid for us to work on that we can look at. And your idea of the core, abortion support core is brilliant. Thank you. But that's how you copy chat. That's how I copy chat.
That will work also.
And that was a successful outcome.
It
was.
It was an action that worked.
Do you want
So it's about 8:30. We wanted to do a couple of things at the end. Technically, I think, David, you are gonna save the chat and send it to us.
I will, yes.
Is there anything else we need to do in terms of wrapping up? Knowing that we are not done, we're just getting started with this next leg of the marathon of marathons.
So also, I think Anne's PowerPoint that she did would be a lovely thing to get afterwards as well. I really appreciated that, and it's a good educational tool.
Yeah, okay. I'll be glad to forward that. And I'd like to thank everybody that was on this Zoom meeting. I thought it was really wonderful brainstorming. I'm hoping that the coordinating committee is going to consider having another General Assembly meeting to follow up, in a month or so, to see how we are with the statement, development of the final statement, the legislation, the abortion care corps idea, any direct actions that we're going to do in terms of demonstrations, all those things that were kind of suggested as immediate outcomes.
Well, we'll definitely take what came up tonight and try to organize it and get it back out to you. Again, the coordinating committee is just a few of us, and what we're hoping is to build back the whole community being involved in making decisions about actions we take. So so this was both overwhelming and encouraging all at the same time. And I appreciate everybody here being here, and we will be in touch soon. So
And Doug, you did a great job facilitating. Really nicely done.
Very
Thank
well
you.
done, Doug.